Well, I think the Mattel organization has a very high regard for quality and professional business management, and they extended that culture and those objectives into the operation of their aircraft operation, very much so. And so, I don't think that Clay Mattel ever considered that the flying operation or the operation that supported his aircraft. He didn't want to see. Uh, he wanted to see the same um, culture and professional management that he valued in his businesses, in the businesses that he worked in and developed. Now that's confidential information, but
No,
I
no,
mean,
I
I
understand.
just Clay enabled us to use the same uh, professional management resources, and as a matter of fact, he insisted on it. So it wasn't a matter of
Yeah,
discretion necessarily.
sure.
And uh, he he would come into that facility as he would any other IMES facility. And I called it the Four Corners Walk, where he would walk around the hangar and open closet doors, take a look at toolboxes and that kind of thing, because he had a very good sense for how much pride there was in the operation and how much real dedication there was and professionalism there was by uh, looking at the broom closet.
Sure. Um, we talked about this earlier. How much of his love of aviation was because it all started here, and his passion for the part of Dayton where the Wright brothers lived and grew up? How
Well,
much?
I mean, Clay could have moved anywhere in the world he wanted to. He could do business anywhere
Mhm.
in the post Imes era, after, and he chose to stay in Dayton because I think probably he considered it a good place to raise kids and have grandkids, and he was very, as far as I know, he's still very passionate and heavily invested in the well-being of Dayton and the culture of Dayton and the traditions of entrepreneurialism and inventiveness and innovation. And he's invested heavily in that over the years. And he stayed in Dayton because he is very passionate about, and he knows probably a lot better than you and I know what Dayton represents
Mm-hmm. That's
from a cultural point of view, from a human point of view. And
yeah. Your
he,
experience with him just flying.
yes,
He is an aviator. He is. Is he a pilot? I don't
no,
know.
he was not a pilot.
But he's pretty passionate about aviation.
He is, and he, as far as I know, he's still very intrigued with the technologies, with the capabilities, and the business organizations that it took to develop those aircraft. And uh, he has a fascination for the culture, the work ethics that go into building airplanes, but also operating them.
Let's talk a little bit about where this is 2016, where this side of the airport, where the CFA facility is, and we're at aviation sales. But
Mm-hmm.
where do you, as your perspective, what do you see happening here?
Well, I think this particular side of the air, I think the airport in general is a gem. It's a diamond in our industry. It's a diamond for the Dayton region. It has to become, it has been, but I know it will continue to be a key part of the infrastructure for business development um, and for, you know, overall economic development and sustainability of the region. Okay, so uh, general aviation, and this particular part of general aviation, this corner, this um, southeastern part of the airport, is extremely well positioned at the crossroads of major ground transportation. Uh, back, and I'm sure there's sensitivity about fuel burn today, But we could taxi out of that hangar, or you could taxi out of the ASI hangar here, whether you're visiting or based here, and within minutes take off.
That is a big deal.
And I mean, from closing the door until taxiing to the end of 24 left, or even if you have to go over to 24 right, or taxi down to the other side, which is really, if you look at the wind patterns here, most of the time you can operate out of one of the 2.4s,
Right.
or 1.8, or 3.6. And so, but literally within minutes you can be in position and hold.
And for pilots, that's a huge advantage.
It is, and the airplane is a time machine. But if you have to spend an hour on the ground or 30 minutes on the ground dealing with air traffic control, and sometimes you have to here as well.
Sure.
I mean, there are weather conditions, but most of the time, our trips are not encumbered by, or we're not encumbered by 30 minutes of taxi time or an hour of ground time waiting to get into the queue to go someplace. So that makes a big difference.
Sure. Now, this is a purely my curiosity about flying the Lockheed Jetstar because it's such a grand airplane designed by Kelly Johnson at Lockheed. I've never been in one. I'm just curious and that's part of this. This is an oral history about aviation.
Well, I was not type rated in the Lockheed Jetstar, but I went out to White Plains, stayed in the Sheraton Inn across from LaGuardia Airport. The next day, Smoke had a car come and take me up to White Plains, and we got into the Jetstar. Now, I was flying actively at the time, flying the Beech 99. It's a very different airplane.
Sure.
But the flying part of the experience was very similar. But I got into that airplane, and with about a 15-minute overview from a flight safety instructor that was flying with Smoke, the flight safety guy was sitting in the center seat, and we spent some time just kind of checking me out, and I flew the airplane from the right seat and called for checklists and that kind of thing. The airplane was amazingly stable, and if you kept it in trim, I went out and flew, did 360s in the airplane up north of New York there, and it was a bumpy day. And it was amazing to me how easy it was really to fly 360s in that airplane at 200 knots and stay within 100 feet of the assigned altitude. I mean, it was a very nice, forgiving platform, stable platform. It had a very sophisticated and complicated fuel system, but it was a great airplane, and I really thought it was the queen of the fleet at that particular time. They had a G2 at that time also, and the Falcon Dassault Falcon 10 that they were flying, and those were great machines also.
Oh boy, no kidding. That's like the last 40 years of corporate aviation in one sentence.
And they ended up trading the Lockheed. They had. I think I only flew the Lockheed as an unrated first officer for maybe 6 months or so, and they replaced that with a Canadair Challenger, the 600 version of the Canadair.
Are there any Jetstars still flying?
Yeah, I think there's a few Jetstars still out there. They're aficionados of the either the Dash 6 or the Dash 8. They put Garrett turbofans on them.
Uprated engines on them.
That is correct. So, they burned a lot of fuel. It was a 4-engine jet. The Dash 6 was. So really, fuel pricing made it impractical for the particular company that I was working for at that time. We had to reduce our operating expenses. So,
I think Lockheed aircraft there's just something different about them.
well, I feel very fortunate to have some Lockheed Jetstar in my pilot logbook.
That's really